Chapter 7, The Sequencer.
I'm Mike Dow.
And I'm Mike Nimmix.
Right, and this is Mike's on Mike's.
This is Mike's on Mike's.
Yeah. Mike's on Mike's, yeah.
But this episode, we're going to talk about sequencers. So what kind of sequencer did you first get into?
I think I said as last time, Brian and I, we used the same gear, and he acquired a PeaveyDPM3 workstation. So it had onboard sounds, had a 3.5 floppy drive. You needed to load the OS, but also sound banks, and you could save songs and sequences, things too. So that was the initial one. Later we got into computer-based, like Cakewalk, and then finally Cubase and multi versions there within. But the first one was the Peavey. It was a onboard hardware sequencer. I revisited the manual. It said it was 9 tracks, which I'm scratching my head on. I remember 8. I think the 9th was maybe for song arranging, where it was a sequence to arrange the sequences.
Sure.
So, but we had a hard time figuring it out. And that's when a friend of ours, Chaz Hewitt, came over one time, and he figured that out. I actually still have a recording. I found a recording of the initial song that he sequenced on that.
Nice.
And so I can share that with you.
You have that.
I have it. So we used that, and we quickly got comfortable with it and quickly outgrew it, especially because we were using it to drive off-board gear. Okay. But even within the Peavey itself, I don't remember if it was 16-note polyphonic, may have been 24. I think it was 16. But it, especially on a lot of downbeats and 4/4 stuff, a lot of things are hitting at the same time. And it would inject what we lovingly and hatingly referred to as Peavey groove into it.
Yeah.
And so when we would record stuff and we'd probably, drive around listening to the cassette, with us, we're just like, okay, we could hear past it almost. But then you get a friend in the car and you're like, yeah, that weird thing's not actually supposed to be there. And I don't know.
But I found that same deal with as soon as I went to a computer-based deal, especially if I was going out one MIDI cable, it would be like, oh man, like if I have a bunch of stuff on downbeat 1 or, happening at the same beat, no matter where it was, it would just be like,
hiccup.
Yeah. You're like, you're first, now you. And I mean, even though it was just whatever. But I guess my first sequencer beyond the Casio record this, play along with it, which would be like a 1-track sequencer, is the Roland MC300. It's here. And it fired up today. So I'm excited about that. It also has a 3.5-inch floppy. That is the system disk. And so in the manual, it says that this is basically a brick or a boat anchor until you load the OS on it. It will do nothing. It'll turn on and say, put in the operating system disk. And whenever I bought it off of that guy, William, my friend, he forgot to give me the disc, or one of his friends had the disc or something. So for a week I had it, and I was like, oh, this really does nothing unless you have... I learned really quickly that the disc is gold. What was your first kind of memory of the thing that jumps out to you with your Peavey sequencer?
It was really a way to interface. We had kind of heard about 4 tracks. I think we may have actually borrowed one, but it was still really live playing it was performance mode.
Right.
And I think what the sequencer allowed was composition, experiment, editing, and on multiple levels. One from just, oh, I like that goes well, this and that, but really in it, with the sound banks. Mm-hmm. Hey, I wrote this part. A good generic one to write it on is piano. And then you start scrolling and you find another sound that elevates the part or makes it do something crazy, and you're going, oh wow, that's and so that was always fun. It also, the detriment was doom scrolling for sounds.
Yeah. It's like to me, it was always like looking for fonts.
As like fonts, paint colors for rooms.
Yeah.
Too much selection is ultimately ends up being no selection.
Right.
And almost hours wasted. But that was part of the evolution of it. It was, and later on you would write something and then you were confident what kind of sound you wanted. And if you had one that you knew, you went right to it. And if not, you made your own. Based on what you were looking for. Oh, no, it needs to be crunchier or this and that. And so, but the sequencer actually let us start moving forward.
I'll pose this question to you, but the question is, what is your the first thing you sequenced? And I remember the first thing I tried to sequence, like really tried for, and it was to mimic something else. And I was trying to do Paul Simon, You Can Call Me Al. I loved that song. I still think it's a pretty great song. And so I was like, oh, well, I've got horns that kind of sound like that, and a bass guitar that kind of sounds like that, and, and drums that kind of sound like that. And just went through it and figured out all the parts and tried to make it, do it, like Muzak kind of version, right? What was your first?
I'd actually had a Depeche Mode anthology piano sheet music book that had, guitar tabs.
Yeah.
At that point, I think it was up through, their third album or something. So today it would be minuscule. But some of those, and they were using relatively simple synth setups back in kind of those days. And they had hardware sequencers. And so it was very quantized and open and not a lot of parts. So it was good to mimic. And when you had the sheet music, you could do that. And that's another thing that in regards to composition, that the sequencer for me did was it made me view the music not as this kind of flowy, linear thing, but as these chunks. Mm-hmm. Oh, because you would get there and be like, oh, here's a coda. They're going to do this. Here's the refrain. Here's the chorus. And I've already programmed that. I can just do that again. So, in a way, it almost felt like cheating.
Yeah.
But it was really just more of an understanding. Mm-hmm. And it didn't make me enjoy things less. I was still able to listen to things without thinking completely about structure. If I wanted to pick something apart, I'll make a case study. But yeah.
Well, and it's funny you talking about the different parts. This sort of taught me music theory because I actually didn't know anything about it whenever I first laid hands on all this stuff. I knew what I knew where middle C was. And you and I took piano from the same piano teacher.
Charlotte Spears?
Spears. I was going to say Spears.
Charlotte.
I can't believe you remember.
She lived on Redbud Lane in Hearst.
I don't
know why I know that. But
all right. Yeah, I do remember. Suzuki Method. Yeah. Learn to play by ear. So we got these tapes. We go home. We listen to them. Try to play along what we hear. So sort of training our ears, which was great for me. I just took to it. And the moment they started teaching us like how to read music, I'm out. No, thank you. I'm no longer interested. And years later, I tried to take piano like in high school, or maybe I graduated or as a senior or something. I had plenty of time, and I was going to force myself to learn how to read music. And again, 2 or 3 lessons. I'm like, nah, never mind. But
Right. If I'm familiar with the song and I have the sheet music in front of me, I can tell you exactly where we are.
yeah, yeah,
But if I'm unfamiliar with the song, I'm not going to play it for you.
yeah, yeah. No math rock. We're not doing any math rock.
So the sequencer, expound on how that helped you with your theory.
Well, the way this is laid out, it has measures and a number that I later found out was BPM, and then just the idea behind the first question it asks you when you want to start a song is it's flashing 4/4 ? And you can go through and change it 3/4 whatever, and you can actually change that throughout the song. But like, well, what's that mean? Until I started messing with it, like, oh, it started to kind of click. The little bit that I did get from Miss Spears, oh, yes, I remember her telling us about that, and then what a sharp is and what a flat is, just the tiniest little bit, and then this, I was off and running with this, like, and that's 4 measures and that's 8 measures, and I need to copy this 8 measures to these 2 measures, yeah.
Well, prior to today, the only other time I remember seeing this was in your room in Bedford.
Oh yeah.
You had a kind of a semicircle setup.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it was a setup where this was on the top right and you were standing to use it.
Yeah.
Is that...
That sounds right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I was fascinated by that because we were using the onboard workstation sequencer, and I'd never heard of a sequencer...
That was not.
Or never seen one.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, how does that work? What's going on here? And it was cool because it was Roland.
Right. Yeah. Again, it's this big boy, like the Akai and Korg and later Kurzweil, but Roland, yeah, it's just like, no, I've seen those names before. They're pretty nice.
So when you got this from William, did you know how to use it?
Yeah, actually, that's one of the main reasons. He was lending it to a friend. When I first met him, it was all set up, and he said, "Here's a track, and then you can play along with it, and then you can add drums." And it was like, I can be an '80s rock star right now
By myself.
When I heard this and being able, he was like, "Go nuts, man!" And I did some terrible sequences with it, but once we bought it, all the gear came except for this. And so I'm like, it's fine, I don't really need that, until I was like, oh, wait, I know. That's the thing that I like the most about this, is being able to play along with myself and make a song and do all those things. So once I got it, and then it didn't have the disc, with it, and then after I got that, it was like, you couldn't pull me away from that room, I was up really late, same like you, just up super late. My brother, I only have the one, my brother and sisters and parents are so kind to not like say shut the hell up, like stop doing that. I may have been putting on headphones at some point, but I along with this whole gear came 2 giant PV beer bar, like
PA monitors.
Yeah, and so it could get loud, and I would get loud, but usually people were, in the summer, people were gone at jobs or whatever, and I was just in there jamming away.
Nice.
Yeah.
So tell me about the operations on this. So there are 5 tracks or 6, or how's that?
So it has 4 real-time tracks, and then it has, do we want to go to this now and like just kind of go through it?
Yeah, let's get a basic, because I honestly don't know. I've never used the thing.
Let me go change cameras. If I set this up better, then I wouldn't.
Okay.
All right, and we're back. I don't want to reboot it. It would come up like that, and it would say, when you hit record, like it says right now, # or real short for signature,
Yep.
right? 4/4. So yeah, we'll do 4/4, and you hit enter, and then it's like press the play button, right? And then it's gonna give you an 8 count in, right? I'm gonna hit stop, but see, nothing is red here because we haven't recorded anything, not even silence. I didn't let it get to the 8 count,
Right.
but if I did hit record and I hit play, and it would start recording now, and it said measure -2, -1 in there. So if I hit stop now, you will see the R track, and R track is the rhythm track, and it records the time signature, but also will let you sequence drums.
Okay.
And so that's kind of a hidden cool track. Like you can play the drums with, C and D, and then what is this? F sharp
on the hi-hat.
Yeah, exactly. Like and we can do that. But you can also like do what you did with the Peavey and kind of make these drum measure part things that you can then recall and say, oh, bring this one forward, and that's all on the R track.
Okay. So right now the R track exists with 0 events.
With 0 events except for
time signature.
I'm 120
and
BPM and time signature is 4/4.
Gotcha.
But the moment we start recording anything, we are actually on real time. It says real over here in 1, and real 1 means that it's real time track 1. So we've got this K2000 MIDI out going to MIDI in on MC300, and the MC300's MIDI out 1 going back into the in on this. So like right now, the K2000 is set up to play back locally, right? We found a sound, MIDI channel 1, and it plays, when we hit the key, it plays locally, but it also sends a MIDI signal into the MC300. And that's going to get recorded. Now, it's not going to go through the MC300.
The signal, not the sound.
Right. The signal is not going to go through the MC300 because I haven't turned on what they call soft through. So the other way that you can play it is to say, don't play this locally. When I hit this key, I just want it to send the MIDI, and you could come through the soft through and come back in, and the input of that MIDI note would actually trigger the sound on this keyboard.
I understand all of that.
Yeah.
Does this just have the soft through because it doesn't have a physical through?
Yes, it has a through, and I think the through is no matter what, when whatever's coming in. And so the soft through turns your outputs. But I would probably need to actually look at the instructions to see, because
my understanding is it will route through the out channel.
Right.
In addition to the through.
The through, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So so why would you use that, right? Immediately, it's super useful with a multi-timbral module, right? Because otherwise, you're not getting any sound. Like you have to use your sequencer as a router. Like whatever's coming into it, because if you just left everything how it is when it comes on, you hit, in fact, that was the very first thing that tripped me up. Like I go to William's house and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I want to play the sounds on that sound module. And I'm like, how come it's not working? Oh, you got to turn on the soft through. And it's like MIDI. And then it's the very last one. I remember that. That's like motor.
Spin the wheel.
Yeah, that's just motor memory. MIDI, just spin it all the way. MIDI 12 menu. You hit enter and then you turn it on. Now, and the thing is, you don't have to select it and then it's active. Like it's active whenever you do it. So this is off and then this is on. And sometimes you can hear the difference. Like you can hear the little double, but
because it's passing through and coming back and re-triggering.
Right. So anyway, leaving it off because of the way that we have things set up here. And then to exit out of this menu, I think you hit stop. Yeah. Stop.
No, but that's good to know, because instead of having, if you wanted sounds on your workstation, as well as other modules, you don't have to have a ring coming back to the workstation. You can have 2 branches.
Right.
Okay.
Right, and the fact this also had 2 outputs, and you can, I've never had to do this, but you can like split those up. You can say, I only want these channels to go on output 2 and whatever.
Which makes sense when you start beefing things up. We had a similar deal once we started using Cubase and offboard modules where we just said the Ensoniq ASR10, I think it had 16 channels, but there were 8 sound banks.
Yeah.
And we basically wouldn't load more than the 8. We could layer sounds and but it was just too complex. So we would always load drums on channel 1. And to make everything very simple in Cubase, channel 1 was always drums.
Yeah.
No matter what. And on offboard, JD990 or the Proteus or we had some PV sound modules. Those had 1 through 8 turned off. Mm-hmm. Because it was just our setup and the way to not confuse things.
Right.
Because otherwise it was learning by trial about the best way to do things.
So that's funny that you say you chose drums for channel 1. I think Roland at some point, maybe they're not the ones who did it, but they're U220, and then this guy, the default drum channel is 10. They're like, channel 10 is the default, and
that was the MIDI standard. On your Sound Blaster, channel 10 was drums.
You got
a MIDI file.
Yeah, you can change it, but it was always like, why is that? And then later I started realizing, oh, well, maybe it's because you're going to have 9 voices up to that point. And then if you need more, you've got, more.
I don't know why either, but once we kind of learned with the 10 thing, or we downloaded a MIDI file and split it up and had to rearrange stuff just the way it was. Maybe Brian knows a better way of why we ended up doing that, but I think we just got to a point where we felt we need to standardize because we're loading stuff up and we want it to always be I think I know one reason. Loading stuff off floppy on the ASR10 took a while. Mm-hmm. And if you had and during a certain like album, a lot of the songs would have the same drum kit or similar sounds.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, we've loaded it in channel 1.
Right.
Why do I want to reload that in another channel?
Right.
So it just kind of, I think it was more of a use case.
Right. It took a while to load sounds because
it took a while to load anything.
Yeah.
You know, Windows 95 came on 22 floppy disks.
Right.
But at least with your sequencer, you weren't worried about loading sounds.
Right. Right. And so I just read this in the manual. It holds something like 80,000 notes or something.
Events.
Like that. Yeah, events or whatever. And 8 songs, and you can put it in like jukebox mode, or that's not what they call it, but it's like that. But my point was that samples took up a lot of room. MIDI songs did not, because they're not holding sounds. They're just holding, it's kind of like an orchestra, right? They're just notes on a page, basically.
Yep.
And so this one, and that's all this is it's just a director or a composer or whatever you want to call it.
So you've got the drum track and 4 independent MIDI channels, so 4 voices.
Well, so the cool thing is it doesn't care. So one thing, you can do multiple MIDI channels at the same time if you had like a merge box, which I have somewhere.
But that you're doubling the voice, right?
So what you would do is, let's say I recorded a bass guitar on one, but like I also had a rhythm guitar and then horns, and then like I'm starting to run out of tracks, and they're all on different MIDI channels. So I've done MIDI channel 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I can actually take 4 and I can merge it with 3. There's a merge button.
Oh.
And because they're on different MIDI...
I'm starting to remember this now.
Yeah, they're MIDI channels, but because they're on different MIDI channels, you can merge all those down to 1. And so you could keep merging things all the way down to 1. The only part where you kind of start screwing yourself is if you were doing 2 parts on the same MIDI channel, and then you would have to go into what they call the microscope and like go pick out the notes that you screwed up or whatever. But
so is that up to 16 channels, or
all
could
16
you go
channels?
Could you go beyond that?
You can do 16 channel. You may have been able to go beyond that with the 2 outputs.
I think I'm remembering that in your when I was at your place, that I was kind of like 5 tracks. What the? And you're like, no, you can merge them. Yeah. But say you merge tracks, and you want to go. I need to edit that organ part.
Yeah. You can extract that MIDI channel back out to another track.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. You can erase a track, delete a measure. Merge tracks was edit 4. Extract. There we go. Edit 5 is extract from
and you extract
this track
by channel?
By MIDI channel.
Okay.
That's right. That's why I was saying if you did this
so you're going to have your notebook for this song that tells you what's on what.
Right. Well, yeah.
Well, I mean, because since this is not connected to a sound bank,
right,
you don't know what channel 3 is.
Right.
That you don't know that that's organ.
So, all right. So here's the thing.
Or can you type in notes?
So you can type in notes. No, I'm sorry. No, you can't type in notes like a notepad. No, you can say this should have been a B flat. But what you can do is, and what I would do sometimes is the first measure of every song I would leave blank, but it wouldn't be blank. It would be a patch change.
Right.
So I would go to, I would say, on my U220, I'm going to do patch 5, and on my D50, I'm going to do patch whatever. And this would tell those, go to that patch. And
we would do the same, because if you load up a song and all your gear's on and you were on a different song, those patches don't automatically come up.
Right.
And the first time you do that and you're like, what the hell? Then you learn, you got a ghost measure.
Yeah.
And then on the computer sequencers, you double tap spacebar, 1 to stop, 1 to go back to the beginning, and then wait, and then a third time to start playing again. And then you see all the gear, light up and move and chime in line. And you're like, thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, and then you start getting it, and you're like, so that's a program or control change, or I forget what it was called, a patch, whatever. And then you're like, I can do CC things. I can actually control volume, and I control pan, and all.
Well, that was my next thing.
Yeah.
Of all the MIDI informational channels, program, bank, velocity, volume, pan, fade, aftertouch, sustain.
Remember the one that you could use? What was it? It was I think a DX7 had it, where you could use blew air into a thing, and that would control.
I don't know what parameter that was actually controlling.
Breath, I think it was something like that.
Well, I remember seeing that, but I didn't actually know.
Yeah, you could,
because I didn't have that.
You could do it like a flute or whatever, and have it get louder.
But this would record anything that was out there. I mean, it was MIDI standard, and those things were out there. So
it'll do it.
Okay.
You can bog it down with that kind of stuff, right? So
those are events.
Yeah. And so if you're doing a real slow volume up or down or pan or something like that, and then
every time it ticks from 127 down to 0, that's an event.
It's information that it's so. It was cool the first time you realize it, and then afterwards you're like, well, maybe I just let things be a certain volume unless they need to change later, and then maybe I just do a jump change and it doesn't have to be real smooth, There's lots of things.
That was our Spinal Tap. We didn't go up to 11. We went up to 127.
127, that's right. So do you want to find some drums and do a thing real quick?
Yeah, let's do this.
Well, so that's the cool thing about this is, all right, give me a tempo that you would like to go at.
You can just throw it at 120.
121 is where it is, so.
It's a good highway.
All right. Going back to the beginning, I hit the reset button. I'm going to do a pause record, and then it will just go when you go.
On the first event?
Yeah, so it's ready for you. All right, so now we stop, we go to the beginning, we listen to it back. All right, and then the next thing we do is quantize.
There we go, quant button.
So that is under edit, and
do you is a default 16ths, or can you go 30 seconds, 64s, whole notes?
It's been a minute, so...
All right.
All right, let me take off my glasses. And so we're not going to erase it. We're not going to delete it. We're not going to insert, merge, transpose, change, quantize. All right. Edit number 9 is quantize. We hit enter. What track? And we're like, oh, track 1. And then MIDI channel. Well, I think it's MIDI channel 1. I'm pretty sure. But when I didn't know, you could just go to all. And I hit
That
all.
works when it's the only one you got.
And then it's like, resolution. And so now it's got a little, note with 2 flags. And so this is where I learned things, right?
So that's 30 second, right?
I think so. Let's see. All right. So that's half note. This is quarter note. And then that's eighth note with 1 flag.
Oh, eighth note with 1. So 16th is the 2, yeah.
So what did we do?
Eighth would
notes.
work, yeah.
All right. So I'm going to hit enter. Now, the problem with this is there is no undo. So if it's not right, well, we got to call a musician back in. So from measure 1, and then I would just turn this until it wouldn't turn anymore, all the way to measure 3. All right. Now, and then where do you want to quantize it to? This is kind of the undo. We can go to track 2 if we want to, but I would always just write over track 1.
My default would be overwrite because I'm if it sucks, I'll just re-record it.
That's right. Are you sure? And it says you hit the record button when you're sure. So we hit record. It's done. And then I hit stop. Let's listen to the quantized. Yeah. It's so great. So
That's
now,
solid.
yeah, it's pretty good. Like
that's anti-PV solid.
When I heard myself play back real time and then I heard that, I was like, that's good.
Yes.
It made me like Roland like the way that I kind of like Apple. So now we got to go find a bass guitar, right? Or we'll add more. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing with drums, right? Is you can just go crazy with them. And that's the terrible thing about MIDI drums is, it's not like real drums. The timbre doesn't change.
Yeah, I don't like their drum layout. I'm used to
I mean, they do well, and so the thing is, they kind of go back and forth, right? They have there are some general MIDI drums in there somewhere, but if we change this at this point, then all of our stuff will be messed up. So we got to change the MIDI channel first
on
this. Right. So go to MIDI, and then
control channel 1 up top.
There you go.
We'll just go to 2.
Yep, and then we'll hit enter, and then press MIDI again to get out of here. And I think we can, or maybe it's exit. Oh, we did it. It's fine.
I hit program.
Yeah. So now we're on a different program. Yeah, and let's see if our drums stayed. Cool. All right. So now we just got to go find another sound.
Okay. This thing.
Yeah, usually I just hit the...
There we go.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
Little new order for you.
All right. Here we go. We're going to count you off. Oh, I got to change. I almost recorded over the awesome drums we did.
Now you have to turn on channel 2, right?
Yeah, that's right. So real time, way over here.
Is real time mean input for... Okay, so you've tapped channel 2 saying...
Yeah, I'm going to change this to channel 2. I think I'm even going to hit enter, and I'm going to go back to...
You've tapped track 1, and you're saying, I want this to be input real time from channel 2?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Well, I'm on track 2 over here. So when I hit 2 over here, we changed the MIDI channel over here to channel 2.
Right.
Because our drums are on channel 1. Because
we're changing the in out to 2.
Right.
And you're assigning it to track 1, which is, this is R and then 1.
So R, we didn't record anything on because R is kind of like the old school actual sequencer, which I'll show you.
Oh, I thought you put drums on there.
I did not.
Okay,
it won't let you do real time stuff on R.
Oh,
it only lets you do sequence step kind of stuff. which we can get into. But basically, we did a real-time record of 1, and that's why it lit up.
Okay.
And so now I've changed this to track 2, and the moment that we have any information on it, it will light up as red.
Understood.
Because it makes no sense. When I first did this, I was like, well, I just choose track 2, right? No, that's not how you do it.
Okay.
The
it's
reason
more of a feedback, like there's something on me.
There's something here. If I do this, now 1 won't play back. Your drums will not play back. Like if I can go to the beginning, nothing's there. But if I turn it on,
okay,
it's there.
It's more like active and mute.
Yeah.
Or active and non-active, and you can't make it active if there's nothing there.
That's right.
All right,
and so now we're about to record onto track 2. I'm going to give you the same thing where it will start as soon as you're ready.
That seems weird to me, because I always had to do it when I played. I would have a count off, and then it would be playing the other tracks with me.
Yeah.
Would this play with me once I start?
Oh, yeah. Because it's going to start on measure note 1. Here it is, played back.
Let's hear it.
So, and then you can just keep adding and keep, merging. And, I wanted to mess with the bass, then you extract that out and put that on a track. So now you're changing your bass sound, channel 2.
Okay.
So
go
to MIDI.
Let's go to MIDI, channel 3.
Right.
Program.
Now you can do things.
Now I can do. I just want to kind of twangy guitar. This is that doom scrolling,
Right.
We talked about that.
And I couldn't give you any help here.
I'm honestly looking for something that's there. Guitar mutes. All right. Okay. We'll record that.
Whenever you're ready, I'm going to hit play.
Go for
ready?
it.
2, 3, 4. See, I've done something terribly wrong, and I can't undo it.
You recorded over
your bass.
Over the bass.
Yeah.
But that's okay. Now we can go to track 3.
Track 3.
And go back to the bass.
That's right.
On channel 2.
Yeah, which it should already be there. You don't have to find it. It's there. Just hit play. Yeah. Right? Go down.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because it's a multi-timbral keyboard, right? And so it knows. All right, we are on the right track now. We're going to count in again.
Got it. Get ready.
2, 3, 4.
Okay.
And then of course we quantize all, and then
and it just does everything.
I can select a track. I can select a MIDI channel. I can select those.
Okay.
Yeah, those things.
Got it.
So, but yeah, that's it. I mean,
all right, cool. Worst cover I've ever heard.
Yeah, I mean, and that's sequencing with the MC300. I mean, the other things that it can do, like it has this microscope mode. You get into it, and you're like,
is that like a step editor?
Kind of, yeah.
Oh. Okay, so say the third note that I played, you go to it. What options do you have?
So
once you find it, yeah,
that one,
that low note.
I hit enter. And I think I go...
Can you change parameters such as velocity?
I think so. It says F2, and I think your velocity on... I can't remember exactly how to do it. I think... Do I edit? Change event. Yes. And so now I can change the note to... that MIDI channel. That's what it is. That's the MIDI channel. This is the note. So I can change it to an F sharp. Notice I'm not hearing it.
Right.
I can change the velocity.
Is that a soft through function?
No.
Okay.
Oh, maybe.
If it is, I'm going to be angry because I didn't hear it for all these years.
Velocity, and then I can change the what they call the gate time, which is how long you held it.
Right. Yep.
So let's just make it super loud. 127 all the way.
What was it?
87.
Okay.
All right. So
Just for reference.
So I'm done now, and the gate time, I'm going to make it super short.
So instead of that long bass note, it's going to be a really loud pop.
It's going to bump like that. So, like that. So, all right, we're done. Now when I step through them, it'll be like that one.
That's exactly okay.
So now
you exit out and play it,
and now we'll hear what I did, how I screwed it up.
Yeah,
I definitely
sounds
messed
like
it
a
up.
bad rehearsal.
Yeah,
Loving it. And in that same vein, you could go step in there, turn the velocity back to 82, and
the gate time way back to 180 something.
Is that millis? What was the gate?
So this thing measures things in ticks, and it's like
I guess that's based on the BPM.
Right. It is. So that's their slice of time. So really, if you wanted things to be better, you could double time something. You'd be like, if I really wanted to like capture somebody.
Double time, twice the resolution.
Right.
Sounds the same.
Yeah.
Say you have an entire song, 3 minutes long, done, 16 tracks. Can you change the resolution to the entire composition at that point?
No.
Is this only right when I start with the rhythm track?
Yeah.
Okay. No. I mean, knowing that answer is important.
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool though. That's how features eventually get added. Not that anybody's gonna be adding features. I'm sure somebody's hacked the heck out of this thing and has their own OS somewhere that.
Oh, there's a whole YouTube
that
bunch.
2 other people on Earth.
Yeah.
would love to see.
Right.
That's fantastic though. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in the MIDI stuff is kind of like what happens if I went through the MIDI menu, what it receives, and what do you want to do with, I guess, channel and aftertouch and all that stuff. It's kind of boring. Functions.
I feel it would be hard to use that as a composition tool.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a mistake corrector.
Yeah.
Is that how you mainly utilized it?
Yeah.
Like, oh, that performance is great, but that one note is either wrong or I accidentally bumped the adjacency. Yep. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. That little microscope thing was exactly what you did with it.
How does the microscope work when you play a chord? So you're going to have 3 events stacked on the same channel. Does it go from lowest to highest in order when you're stepping through, or how would you?
So when you're quantized, yes. When you're not quantized, how good are you?
Right.
Because it will know exactly where you played.
And if you don't, it will tell you.
Yeah, you'll know which one you hit first.
Okay.
But yeah, let's say you're quantized. It's from lowest to highest. I think that's right.
But it will step through 3 independent notes if you did a 3-note chord.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Asked and answered.
Yeah. Because I've done it. I remember doing it. And then,
I know you would have.
Yeah, so editing, let's see. In edit mode, you can erase tracks, delete measures, insert measures, which is kind of nonlinear, right? And then merge. We talked about that.
Is delete synonymous with cut in Avid or lift? If you deleted measure 1 out of 4, would 2, 3, and 4 slide over, or would you just have a hole? I'm thinking you'd have a hole.
I don't know the answer.
Okay.
Because
I never would have used it, honestly.
I never did. If I was going to delete something, I just record over it.
I don't know if, and that's what we did too. But I don't know if that's because we thought linearly based on doing tape recordings.
Yeah.
Where I have to insert, punch in, punch out at this point, rather than whatever.
Yeah.
And hope that you punched out soon enough not to screw up the good part that you left behind.
Right. Because there's no undo. The no undo. What else was the edit? You could extract. We talked about that. You could transpose. You could
Oh, nice. Okay.
could fix, you know, be like, I want everything to go up half a note. Change velocity overall, which is kind of nice. You can say
For a measure and a channel.
yeah. You can
Like
say
I want to make all this 10.
10 more. So, you know, from 0 to 127, I want everything 10 more.
Yeah, that envelope on the sound doesn't kick in until you're at this height, and I played it right, but I just want to.
Yep.
Got it.
You can change your MIDI channel on a track. You can say, I actually need that to go to a different MIDI channel.
I want to record it on piano, but it's going to go to some weird non-heavy attack sound. So I want to record it correctly, but okay.
Yeah. Or you're going to send it to somebody, or you have a big setup where, you know, I already have my one big weird synth over there, and it's always MIDI channel 11. Let's see how this sounds through that. And then quantize, and then copy. So that was your edit menu. And that guy.
Copy was fun. Two ways that we used it compositionally was if you started with a drum beat. I mean, one of the mysteries was, how do you write a song?
Yeah.
Do you start with this? Do you start with that? And the answer was yes.
Yeah.
And it always ended up different, but it was really cool to take, if you had a really rhythmic melody,
Right.
just change the channel, copy it to the drum track, or change the channel to a drum track, and amazingly, you had something to really work with.
Right.
That was kind of neat, using percussive sounds that you didn't normally program or whatever, or then transpose it up and down that, and you can find some groove. Alternatively, we would take a drum track and move it to an instrument and go, oh,
Yeah.
that's inspiring.
What else did this do? It had a available memory. We have 87% memory available from just that little bit that we did. Yeah.
This was of the 80,000 events.
Yeah.
Okay, we had 3 tracks. Let's call it 50 notes on paper. But you and I both know that unheard is a lot of information.
Right. Well, also, we have a whole nother song that it loaded up that I did. It's not a loaded song, and there's nothing in there, but it is kind of holding information.
It's got a memory spot
for that.
Understood.
That
song. Okay. Did you ever max out your events?
Yeah. I mean, for sure, man. But it had nothing to do with the song.
It wasn't some 80-minute symphony.
No. It had everything to do with I had 8 songs loaded.
Okay.
Or 7 songs loaded and working on the 8th one, and I just used all of it.
So in that instance,
Memory
could
full.
you save the 8th song to a disc by itself?
Absolutely.
And then I guess you'd reboot or clear memory. Is there a way to clear memory without reboot?
So that's when you get into the modes, right?
Okay.
So the mode button over here, we're in the MIDI recorder mode. And so if we jump over to disk mode, then we can do things like save to disk, which it was always scary. It's like, okay, well, how do I save this? Well, we do it like this. We go to disk mode, hit enter. What do you want to do? Load, delete, save, or rename? We're going to save, which was 2, enter. What song did you want to save? Oh, song 2. Enter. What's the name of it? Oh, well,
and you've got
going to be painful.
28 characters to spin around. And okay.
Yeah. And so, now I'm spinning to N for Nimmix, and I don't want to do the rest of it. So it's going to be called N.
It sounds great.
I hit enter, and it's like, are you sure?
Be in 2023. Name it like a comet.
Right. And it says press save, which this little button down here says play/save. There it goes. And we're writing data to a 15-year-old disk. And then you're done. And
so that took about 10, 15 seconds.
Yeah. Takes a while.
For a file that I'm just going to guess off the top of my head is 6 or 8K.
Yeah, it's tiny. So if I hit mode, we got MIDI recorder, disk, chain play, that's that jukebox mode, and then utility. If you go into utility mode, you're clearing the RAM.
Okay. if you were to have a power outage or cycle the power,
Yeah.
is the result regarding the memory the same?
Yeah. Yeah. If I turn this off and turn it back on,
It's volatile.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't save thing. Like, you can't just come back. You can't be like, I recorded the greatest thing ever. Let me go get some lunch.
How many of those moments did you experience before you learned the phone rings, save, go into the bathroom, save, walking away from this for any reason at all, save?
Yeah. Well, so it does one of two things. You either learn that or you just don't value your stuff anymore. Like, meh, all right.
True. But if you were sequencing for hours and had done, you got the drums down, you did this, it was just more of a frustrating moment if you did not have it saved.
Right.
So, okay.
Right. And I think we've pretty much covered what this thing will do. It had one other cool thing about, well, no, we didn't do the sequence part, but the had a tape input on the back and a tape output. And so the idea is it wasn't SMPTE time code, but if you had a 4-track recorder and you were willing to sacrifice one of those tracks, you can stripe that track, and then wherever you were on your 4-track analog tape recorder, this would follow.
Okay.
So how I would do it is I would have composed something with this guy, and here's my song. Okay. And everybody's going to play along with this. And then I would take my 4-track recorder, and the first track they recommend doing an edge track. I play or I hit record on it, give it, it says give it like 10 seconds of this one's output, and then hit play and let this play all the way through. And now it's not playing.
So you're striping the tape.
Yeah, you're striping your analog tape there, and then so you never do anything to your track 1 there. Okay. And then you have 2, 3, and 4 on your analog tape recorder to do vocals and do bouncing and do guitar or whatever you want to do, your live inputs. And then you've already got your song here that you can then add or edit or do whatever, because it's following whatever you've done on your analog.
Okay, so this will let you stripe the tape, but that information is used to sync this on the output.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you play back on your analog tape recorder, it tells this guy, go now at 120 beats per minute, per BPM, beat per minute, and
or follow this clock signal.
Exactly. And it follows along, and it doesn't matter where you are. It's like, I'm at measure 35 now, and it jumps to it, and it tells all of your...
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
You don't have to start at the beginning all the whole time.
That's right. So you can... It was pretty great.
That's pretty powerful from a recording standpoint.
Yeah.
What you said there was something else, I think.
Yeah, there's one more thing, and I don't know that I'm going to be able to remember how to do it, but right here for real time, you can choose to punch in.
Okay.
Or you can do step recording.
I'm glad we learned on a physical sequencer.
Right.
I think you're more in touch with what actually is kind of happening. Now, it wasn't physical like a, TR-303 or something.
It's still software. I mean, it's all still software, but it wasn't until when I played stuff back on this little Roland, and I heard it back in time, whenever I hit quantize, I was like, that is quantized for sure. And then later I'm listening to stuff back on a computer, 386 or whatever, Cubase, and I'm like, that doesn't,
it wasn't as solid all the time because there's interrupts, the crap going on with your OS in the background. It wasn't as isolated.
Exactly. And so there's just kind of like, well, maybe there's value to this little thing over here. But I remember thinking once I get a computer, I'm selling this. I'm getting rid of this. But no, I'm glad I never did, because
either you haven't ever gotten a computer.
Yeah.
I feel like I've learned something for the first time, but actually grasped it the first time around.
Yeah.
A lot of similarities, but a different beast. That was pretty neat to see that when I saw it way back when. I'm ready. Count me down.
Get set. It's done.
Got 23 seconds.
All right.
So we've had a little reminiscence. Did a deep dive into a sequencer which came out in 1980 something.
Mm-hmm.
We've kind of said that that's a building block of composition, opened up the world. Once you figured this thing out, what was your next kind of piece of equipment that received your most attention of trying to decode?
Definitely the module, right? So using the U220 sound module, the multi-timbral, just a place that has a bunch of sounds and it's like ready to receive the commands from this guy. So,
Okay.
Yeah, we should do the next one on that.
And you still have it?
I do.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I hope it turns on.
So we can do that and start looking at some cool things.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Excellent. Well, Mike,
it's been another episode of Mike and Mike's
on mics.
on Mike's.
Cool. Thanks.
Bye.
Mike's on mic.